I made millions for the company. Then I checked my bonus. 0. That's when I realized they were using me, not rewarding me. I have been in sales for almost 6 years, and by every measurable metric, I am the best performer in my team. My name is Ethan Carter, a 32-year-old account executive with a sharp focus, short black hair, and a quiet personality that makes people underestimate me at first. I don't talk much in meetings, but when I do, I bring numbers that nobody can argue with. My manager, Daniel Reed, is a tall man in his late 40s with neatly combed gray hair and a constantly confident smile. He has the kind of personality that fills a room, loud, persuasive, and always quick to take credit when things go well. People say he used to be a top salesman himself, but a bad market year forced him into management, where he learned how to play politics better than closing deals. In my team, there is also Ryan Blake, a 28-year-old sales associate with stylish clothes, perfect hair, and a loud voice that always finds its way into conversations. Ryan is not the strongest in actual sales performance, but he is extremely good at presenting himself. He always knows what to say in meetings, always laughs at the right time, and always makes sure the manager notices him. People like him because he is visible, even when results don't fully support it. I, on the other hand, work differently. I take the most difficult clients, the ones others avoid because they are slow, demanding, or already halfway out the door. I don't complain. I just fix them. Over time, I became the person the team relies on when a deal is about to collapse. If someone loses a big account, they come to me quietly and say, "Can you save this?" And I usually do. Daniel depends on my numbers every quarter. When the team is behind target, my accounts are the reason we still hit KPI. But strangely, in meetings, my name is rarely the first one mentioned. Ryan often gets praised for great energy and strong communication, while I am just described as reliable. I never questioned it before. I thought performance would speak for itself. But slowly, I started noticing something strange. The people who talk the most are not always the people who produce the most. And in my company, visibility often seems more valuable than results. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. As long as I was closing deals and hitting targets, everything else was just noise. That belief would not last long.
At first, I told myself everything in the company was fair. Results mattered. Numbers spoke. That was the rule I believed in. But then things started to feel off. My manager, Daniel Reed, called me into a short one-on-one meeting. He was smiling as usual, leaning back in his chair like nothing in the world could stress him. "Ethan, you're doing great," he said, tapping my performance report. "But we need to talk about compensation structure this year." I already didn't like the sound of that. In the same office building, HR was led by a woman named Melissa Grant. She was in her mid-30s, always dressed in clean beige suits, hair tied tightly as if everything emotional had been locked away. She spoke in a calm, rehearsed voice that made even bad news sound normal. When I met her later, she said the same line I would hear repeatedly. "Budget for bonuses is limited this year." Limited. That word started showing up everywhere. What confused me was what I saw happening around me. There was Ryan Blake, still my teammate. He wasn't delivering strong numbers, at least nothing close to mine, but somehow he got recognition in almost every weekly meeting. Ryan was a 28-year-old man with a confident smile, always wearing expensive-looking shirts and speaking like every sentence was a pitch. He had this habit of leaning forward when speaking, making everything sound urgent and important, even when it wasn't. I noticed he received a bonus increase. Not me. There was also Lisa Monroe, a new hire in her late 20s with blonde hair, soft voice, and very average results in her first quarter. She struggled with closing deals, often forwarding difficult clients to others. Yet she was praised for team contribution and received a higher performance rating than expected. I started comparing numbers quietly. My revenue, highest in the team. My closed deals, most stable and long-term. My client retention, nearly perfect. Yet the recognition flow was going elsewhere. In meetings, Daniel would highlight Ryan's communication impact and Lisa's team energy. My name came up only when there was a problem to solve or a deal to rescue, never when there was credit to give. At first, I thought it was just communication style. Maybe I was too quiet. Maybe I wasn't visible enough. But the more I looked at it, the more obvious it became. The system wasn't just about performance. It was about perception. And I was starting to realize something uncomfortable. No matter how much I produced, it didn't automatically mean I would be rewarded for it. That thought stayed with me longer than any meeting that week.
I still remember the moment I opened the email. It was the annual compensation review. I expected a number, even a small one, something that reflected a year of top performance, long nights, and difficult clients. Instead, I saw it. Bonus. $0. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, thinking it had to be a mistake. It wasn't. I walked straight to my manager, Daniel Reed. He was in his glass office, talking casually on the phone, laughing like nothing mattered. Daniel is a tall man in his late 40s, always perfectly dressed, with a controlled smile that rarely disappears. When he noticed me standing there, he quickly ended the call. "Ethan," he said, leaning back. "Everything okay?" I showed him my laptop. He looked at it for less than 5 seconds. Then he smiled. Not surprised, not confused, just prepared. "It's not personal," he said. "It's how the company adjusted the compensation model this year." That sentence felt rehearsed. I asked him directly, "0 bonus? For top performance?" He nodded slowly. "We had to redistribute based on overall team balance." That word again. Balance. I left his office without saying anything else. Later that day, I spoke to HR. Melissa Grant, the same woman from before. Mid-30s, tight posture, calm voice that never changes tone no matter what she says. "I understand your concern," she said, scrolling through something on her screen. "But the bonus decision follows a multi-factor evaluation model." I asked her what factors. She paused, then repeated the same sentence again, slower. No real answer. Outside, I noticed Ryan Blake laughing with 2 teammates near the coffee machine. He was talking about a big impact presentation he had done recently. Everyone around him was nodding. He didn't mention numbers once, but I already knew his results. They weren't better than mine. Not even close. Still, I heard later that he received a bonus increase. That was the moment something inside me changed. It wasn't anger yet. It was clarity. I started looking around the office differently. People weren't rewarded for what they did. They were rewarded for how they were seen doing it. Even Lisa Monroe, still struggling with her accounts, was congratulated in a team email for great collaboration spirit. Meanwhile, I was the one fixing broken deals, saving lost clients, and keeping revenue alive. But I got nothing. Not even an explanation that made sense. That night, I stayed late in the office. Not working, just thinking. For the first time, I started asking myself a dangerous question. If results don't matter here, then what exactly am I working for? After seeing my bonus drop to 0, I didn't argue anymore. I didn't confront Daniel again. I didn't go back to HR. I didn't complain in meetings. I just went quiet. But I didn't stop paying attention. My name is Ethan Carter,
and for the first time in my career, I stopped acting like a normal employee and started thinking like an observer. Daniel Reed, my manager, was still the same. Confident, loud, always performing leadership even when nothing real was happening behind it. He would walk around the office, shaking hands, laughing too hard at jokes, making sure everyone felt his presence. Ryan Blake, on the other hand, was getting louder too. He started hosting small internal updates, speaking with more confidence than before. Ryan is a 28-year-old man with sharp style and a carefully built image. Always the first to volunteer in meetings, always ready with a polished story, even when the numbers didn't fully support it. But I stopped listening to their words. I started watching patterns instead. Every time a major client email came in, I noticed it passed through my hands first. Every time a deal was at risk, I was the one fixing it quietly before it reached leadership panic mode. I wasn't just part of the system. I was holding it together. One night, I stayed late in the office and started doing something I had never done before. I pulled data, email histories, CRM logs, KPI reports, deal ownership records. I wasn't supposed to care this much, but I did. That's when I met someone unexpected. Her name was Claire Morgan, a data analyst in her early 30s. She had short, curly hair, always wore oversized sweaters, and spoke in a calm, slightly tired voice like someone who had seen too many numbers and too little honesty. She noticed me working late and asked, "You're still here?" I nodded. She looked at my screen for a moment and said quietly, "Most people don't look that deep unless they're planning something." I didn't answer. But she wasn't wrong. Through Claire's system access, which she casually shared without asking too many questions, I started seeing something bigger. Revenue wasn't evenly distributed. A small group of clients, high-value accounts, were repeatedly closed, renewed, or saved by the same few people. And I was at the top of that list. Not Ryan, not Daniel. Me. That's when it hit me fully. I wasn't just underappreciated. I was essential. And no one was acting like they knew it. So I made a decision. If the system wasn't going to recognize reality, then I would start documenting it. Quietly, carefully, until the truth could no longer be ignored.
It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was just small things. An email here, a direct message there, a client asking, "Can I speak with you directly instead of the account team?" Then it became a pattern. My name is Ethan Carter, and I started noticing something uncomfortable. Clients weren't asking for the company anymore. They were asking for me. One of them was Marcus Lee, a 45-year-old procurement director from a major logistics firm. He was a sharp, impatient man with salt and pepper hair and a habit of cutting straight to the point. During a scheduled group call, he ignored the account manager completely and said, "Ethan, I want you handling this directly. No middle layer." That sentence changed everything. The account manager on that call, Peter Collins, was in his late 30s, always nervous, with a thin voice and constantly shifting eyes. He tried to recover control of the conversation, but Marcus didn't even look at him. After the call ended, Peter just stared at me for a few seconds and said nothing. That was the first crack. Then came more. Sophie Williams, a client in the tech sector, a woman in her early 30s with sharp eyes and a calm, analytical tone, started emailing me directly for faster resolution. She mentioned that previous responses from the support team were too slow and inconsistent. I didn't encourage it. I didn't block it either. I just responded. Efficiently. Quietly. And I solved problems before they escalated. Meanwhile, inside the company, things started to feel slightly off. Ryan Blake noticed it first. He is 28, always well-dressed, always performing confidence.
But I caught him watching me more often in meetings. Not speaking, just watching. Daniel Reed, my manager, still acted like everything was normal. He continued walking through the office with that controlled smile, talking about team alignment and strategic growth. But I could see it now. He didn't know what was happening beneath the surface. Claire Morgan, the data analyst, sent me a message one night. Your client contact frequency has doubled in 3 weeks. This is not normal. I didn't reply immediately, because I already knew what it meant. I had become the real connection point between clients and the company. Not the system, not the structure. Me. And the most dangerous part was this. No one in leadership seemed to realize how dependent everything had become on a single person quietly doing all the real work. So I kept going. But now, I wasn't just solving problems anymore. I was collecting patterns. And patterns always lead to consequences.
It started with a message I almost ignored. Ethan Carter, we've been following your work for some time. The sender was from a company called Meridian Solutions, one of our strongest competitors in the market. I had seen them steal a few smaller clients before, but never expected them to reach out directly to me. My name is Ethan Carter, and by this point, my role inside my current company had quietly shifted from account executive to something much more dangerous. I had become the person holding most of the client relationships together. The message was followed by a meeting request. I agreed. The meeting took place outside the office in a quiet glass-walled cafe downtown. The person I met was Victor Hale, a man in his early 40s with sharp facial features, perfectly tailored suit, and the kind of calm confidence that comes from knowing exactly what he wants. He didn't waste time on small talk. I'll be direct, Victor said, placing a folder on the table. We know what you're doing inside your current company. That line made me pause. He continued. Your client retention rate, your deal recovery work, your direct client relationships. We've been tracking it for months. I didn't respond immediately. Then he slid the folder toward me. Inside were summaries, performance data, client patterns, even communication frequency. They had mapped my impact better than my own company ever had. Victor leaned back. We want you to lead client strategy for us directly. Not support, not execution. Ownership. That word stood out. Ownership. He didn't stop there. Compensation will be multiple times your current package, he said. And more importantly, you won't be buried under layers of management politics. At that moment, I thought about Daniel Reed, my manager. Always smiling, always performing leadership instead of building anything real. I thought about Ryan Blake too, 28. Polished, always visible, always present in meetings, but rarely present in actual outcomes. Inside my current company, Ryan had started receiving more attention in meetings. Daniel had begun mentioning him more often, almost as if preparing someone else to fill a role that was already quietly collapsing. But none of that mattered to Victor. He only cared about results. After the meeting, I didn't give an answer right away. Instead, I went back to the office and observed something new. For the first time, I noticed how fragile everything really was. One person leaving wouldn't just be a resignation. It would be a structural failure. Claire Morgan messaged me that evening. Your client dependency score just crossed critical threshold. I didn't reply. I already knew what was coming. The system hadn't noticed it yet, but it was already starting to crack. And I was standing right in the center of it. After the meeting with Victor Hale, something in me shifted permanently. I stopped arguing. I stopped reacting.
I stopped trying to prove anything inside a system that no longer felt built for truth. My name is Ethan Carter, and this is the point where I stopped being part of the company mentally, even though I was still physically there. On the surface, everything looked normal. Daniel Reed still walked around the office with his usual confident posture, speaking loudly in meetings, pretending control was intact. Daniel is a man in his late 40s, sharp suit, sharp smile, but lately his eyes had started to show something different. Microtension, like he was sensing pressure he couldn't name yet. Ryan Blake, 28, still played his role perfectly. Always present, always talking, always making sure he was seen. He had started sitting closer to Daniel in meetings, laughing a bit louder than usual, as if positioning himself for something bigger. But none of them knew what I had already decided. Behind the scenes, I started preparing quietly. The first step was control, not emotion. I created a private list of every major client I had built relationships with over the years. Names, contact paths, communication history. People like Marcus Lee, Sophie Williams, and several others who no longer saw the company as the main contact. They saw me. One of them, Marcus, even messaged me directly late at night. If anything changes internally, let me know before anyone else. That message confirmed everything. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was an anchor point. Claire Morgan noticed the shift before anyone else. She is the 32-year-old data analyst with short curly hair and quiet eyes that always seem to observe more than she says. One evening, she caught me exporting data quietly. "You're leaving," she said, not as a question. I didn't deny it. She didn't look surprised, only slightly tired, like she had seen this pattern before in other companies. At the same time, I started formalizing my exit path. Legal documentation, contract checks, transition notes that didn't raise suspicion. Everything looked like professional organization, nothing more. HR still saw me as a stable top performer. Daniel still thought I was just focused on work. Ryan still saw me as quiet competition that hadn't reacted yet. But the truth was simple. I was already gone. Emotionally, strategically, structurally. And I was just waiting for the right moment to make it official. The company had no idea that the foundation they were standing on was already preparing to walk out the door. The moment I resigned, I didn't announce anything dramatic. No speech, no confrontation, no final meeting. I simply left. My name is Ethan Carter, and within 72 hours of joining Meridian Solutions, everything I predicted started happening faster than anyone expected. At the new company, the environment felt different immediately. There was no fake confidence, no constant performance theater. People here cared about one thing: results. Victor Hale, my new director, is a man in his early 40s with a calm, controlled voice and a habit of listening more than speaking. He didn't ask me to prove myself. He simply said, "We already know what you bring." My first surprise came from the clients. Marcus Lee was the first to move. He didn't even hesitate. "If you're gone from there, I'm gone too," he said over a call. His tone was firm, almost irritated, like he had been waiting for an excuse to leave. Then Sophie Williams followed. Then 2 more accounts within the same week. Each transition was clean, direct, no drama. They weren't switching companies, they were switching relationships. Back at my old company, things started breaking faster than expected. Peter Collins, one of the account managers who had replaced my touchpoints, started sending desperate emails to clients who no longer replied. His communication style became increasingly frantic, but it didn't matter. The clients had already made their decision. Ryan Blake, 28, who always relied on presentation over substance, suddenly found himself in meetings where no one responded to him the same way anymore. His polished tone, once impressive internally, meant nothing externally. He started losing confidence. Daniel Reed, my former manager, finally showed cracks. A man once known for control now sat in emergency meetings, his sharp smile gone, replaced by a tight jaw and forced calm. He kept repeating phrases like, "We need to stabilize accounts," but the stability was already gone. One internal email leaked, which I later saw through industry contacts. Leadership was questioning how so many key accounts followed one employee out so quickly. The word dependency risk appeared multiple times. At Meridian Solutions, everything moved in the opposite direction. Victor assigned me full ownership of strategic accounts. No layers, no approval delays, just direct authority. Within a month, I was handling larger portfolios than I ever had before, except this time, I wasn't fixing broken systems. I was building them. One afternoon, Victor looked at the performance dashboard and said quietly, "You didn't just bring clients. You brought the structure with you." And he was right. Because the truth was simple. I wasn't replaceable in the old company. I was foundational. And now, I was finally being treated like it. So tell me, was I wrong to leave and take my clients with me? Or was that just the price of finally knowing my worth? If you were me, what would you do? Stay loyal or walk away? Comment your choice below. And if you want more real corporate drama stories like this, like and subscribe for the next one.